Well, I'm back. Now, I can't say that I'm back by popular demand, but I'm back. Time for another Fireside Chat. There we go. Well, the truth is, of course, that I'm not sure how popular it ever was, though I will attest that early on when this pandemic first got started, I was churning quite a few of these out almost like every day, and it was a little bit on the demanding side. But regardless, I'm Pastor Ken. It's October, 16th, 2020, and it's great to be with you. It seems also timely that we have a fireside chat today, since you and I both got up this morning and temperatures were in the low 30s. So who doesn't want to kind of snuggle up next to a warm fire and have a little chat on a day like today? Heck, it was even too cold to go outside and ride a bike as far as I was concerned. You know, these days we've been living in, thinking about them, all the restrictions of the pandemic and whatnot, how you and I have been thoroughly weighed down with excessive technology. I mean, we got texting and stuff, but now we got so many more emails and Zoom meetings and online this and online that. We've had to communicate via the internet more than we ever have before. There's just no question about it. And I don't know about you, but I have no less than actually 4 different email addresses, plus the 2 from the church here. I get inundated with daily communications via my inboxes, all 4 of them. Now, I'll be honest that some I enthusiastically welcome, but there are many I swiftly and decisively delete right out of the get-go. Not a day goes by that I don't have to kind of triage my inbox to determine what I need to attend to immediately, what I need to attend to sometime later, and what I quite frankly are never going to attend to and I just get rid of. They all come, of course, with a text, of some sort. They all come with maybe some pictures, and these days I'm getting more than a few that have, all manner of attachments that I'm supposed to maybe open up or look at. Among those emails that I get one every week from the Bishop of the Northwestern Ohio Synod, Bishop Daniel Bowden. And you and the bishop will be happy to know that I diligently and thoroughly, from top to bottom, left to right, beginning to end, read those emails. Most of the time. Yeah. And the bishop kindly, keeps us posted on what's happening, inspires us with some devotional thoughts and reflections, provides us links to valuable resources, tells us what installation is coming up of some new pastor or synodically authorized minister, tells us about some ordination, some meeting, some funeral, and even as he tells us all about those things, he invites us to be praying for them, because, rarely do any of us get to go to any of those these days because they're off limits or restricted by the number of people who can attend. But at the end of each correspondence that we get every week at least once a week from the bishop, he leaves us at the very bottom of his email, gives you an idea that I actually do read them. At the bottom of the email, he has a little section called or entitled Current Learnings. Yeah. That includes books he's reading, an audio book he's listening to, and some of his favorite apps on his phone that are, helpful for him for his daily disciplines as a person, his spiritual walk. I don't think it's intended in this way. At least I'm pretty sure. To be shaming of any of us clergy out there or whoever else is reading it. But on various occasions, I'll read what he's up to and think, gosh, I wish I was as disciplined in my personal and spiritual life like the bishop is. For example, just the other day, Bishop Daniel informed us that he's reading this book, Antioch and Rome, New Testament Cradles of Catholic Christianity by Raymond Brown and John Meyer. Then he mentioned the audio book that he's listening to, which is Roots, the Saga of the American Family, 30th Anniversary Edition by, well, many of you know, Alex Haley. And then that was followed by his favorite apps, a couple of them. One's called Pray As You Go, and the other called Centering Prayer. I'm always inspired by that. And not to be completely outdone and to avoid some, excessive self-loathing, I clicked on an email just the other day that I typically, put off and end up visiting, sometime later. This time I actually went to the website and it was a podcast. It was actually an interview of a wise church leader, written about 20-some books on numerous relevant topics. His name is Andy Stanley. Maybe you heard of him. He's got a new book coming out later this month, as I was listening to the podcast. Better Decisions, it's called. Better Decisions, Fewer Regrets. I'm thinking to myself, who doesn't want to know about how to do that? How to make better decisions, how to somehow, in the midst of life, have fewer regrets. So I'm thinking, maybe I'd take a listen to this. In fact, I did. I listened to it. And the host of this podcast is essentially interviewing Dr. Stanley about the essence of this new book that's coming out. And Dr. Stanley talked about how the framework for this book of better decisions, fewer regrets, was built around these 5 simple yet essential questions that he's sort of collected over the course of his life that he's found particularly valuable and insightful. And so in this podcast, they sort of look into what this book is about, but using the foundation of these five questions. And I want to share those 5 questions with you. I'm not going to share the answers, but he talks about, asking and answering these 5 questions really helps us to make better decisions and to have, over the course of life, fewer regrets. So here they are. The first question is this, simply, why am I doing this? Really, that's question number 1. Why am I doing this? Really? Specifically, he's talking about us doing some truth-telling in our own life, as opposed to maybe lying to ourselves, to thoroughly process when we're faced with some sort of choice or decision. Why am I doing this? What's the real genesis, to make sure that I'm concerned with what the truth of the matter is, why I'm deciding. Second question is this, is what story do I want to tell down the road? To not only ask that question, but to answer that question, what is it that I want to be able to say down the road when I tell this story about what happened? Do I want to tell the story about how I made this stupid choice that was brainless and how I had to suffer all these consequences, or do I want to tell a different story down the road where I maybe made a much more wise or healthy decision and it produced this sort of fruit or this sort of consequence that was much more welcoming. Third question is this. It's kind of a unique question. It says, is there a tension that needs my attention? I almost wasn't sure what he was saying there. But is there a tension that needs my attention? And talking about in that question about, is there something that is definitely not right? And to not sort of leave that in the background, but actually to address it, to allow it to linger and sort of percolate almost within us, that we don't reject it, but that we actually allow that tension to be looked at and examined and considered. Fourth question is, what is the wise thing to do? He makes a point by saying, don't look at what is the right thing to do. Well, that's not unimportant. But he says, what is the wise thing to do? In this decision-making situation. That let wisdom, wherever it is that we glean and garner wisdom, let that inform the decision-making. And then finally comes this fifth question. He calls it a relationship question. And he has this little caveat with this question. He said, this question now, how it is that we ask and answer this question doesn't have a guaranteed ROI or return on investment. He said, how it is that we answer this question isn't going to necessarily automatically make life go smoother and better and everybody's a happy camper when it's all said and done. This may be actually a tough thing to do. But when we do it, he's arguing that we're gonna make a better decision, and we'll have fewer regrets. And this question actually kind of goes to the core of any of us who call ourselves followers of Jesus Christ. It's the kind of question that goes to the core, to the depths of our souls and our very being, but doesn't stay there, because it wants to come forth out of there and sort of shape our actions, our attitudes, our relationships with one another and those who are our neighbors in life. And the question is this. The fifth question. You ready? What does love require of me? What does love require of me? And he's quick to point out in this podcast, and I'm sure in the book, that as people of faith in Jesus who are trying, striving, endeavoring to walk in the footsteps of Jesus, what informs our response to that question, what does love require of us? He points out something that Jesus admonished people in the 15th chapter of the Gospel of John, where Jesus instructed, love one another. We all kind of get that. Yeah, I've heard that before from Jesus and others. Love one another. But Jesus tacks on something in chapter 15, right after that expression, love one another, which really feeds into this question about what does love require of me? Because the rest of that verse says, love one another as I have loved you. Oh, that actually maybe changes things a little bit. It's not love one another as I think I ought to be loving one another. It's love one another, Jesus says, as I have loved you. It then says, well, I guess in so doing, we're going to have to open up that book, the Bible, and in particular, maybe even read the stories of who Jesus is and how he loved people, how he interacted with people, how he related to people, how he spoke, how he treated people, especially those who were maybe on the fringes, or even those with whom they weren't sure who Jesus was, or even whether or not they agreed with him or wanted to be followers of him. Love one another as I have loved you. I believe that we would all agree, especially as we make our way through these troubled waters that are filled with conflict and divisiveness and opinions and pejorative positions and antagonism and even some hypercriticism. This environment that we are living in today, it would serve us well, I think, to keep that fifth question maybe in first place. That might be the one that informs us to make better decisions and have fewer regrets. Because you and I, assuming we are truly desiring as followers of Jesus to walk in his ways, that when we ask the question, what does love require of me, of us, in the context of how Jesus said, love one another as I have loved you, we might, in answering that, in doing our homework on that, in making application of that, we might make some better decisions in our relationships with other people. We might also have fewer regrets in that department too, and might know of, well, what we need more of this day is anything, greater harmony and less discord. Love one another, Jesus said, as I have loved you. Or that question, what does love require of us, through the filter of who is Jesus? Let's work towards harmony, getting along, less discord in this fractured society and world that we're living in these days. Thanks for being with us, with me. In any case, as always, stay safe, stay healthy, stay praying, stay believing, and stay asking the question and answering it. What does love require of us? God bless you.